Hello and welcome to the build of my PICA 1/5 scale Spitfire Mark IX. The Spitfire has always been a favorite of mine, and when the chance came to locate and purchase the PICA kit, I jumped at it. This kit would have been from the 70s and 80s era, and I was very fortunate to find a complete kit with nothing started, all in the original packaging. This build presentation follows the same format as my previous SPAD 13 build. Basically a series of photos with a voice overlay describing what you're seeing in the pictures. So without further ado, here's my build. This first picture shows the completed rudder and tail fin assembly, and unfortunately I was not able to, or did not take any pictures of the actual layup and construction of it. But it was basically built with the intentions of keeping it as light as possible. The next series of pictures show the construction of the stabilizer, and of this you can note the lightning holes that were put into the structure. Again, trying to keep weight to an absolute minimum. One of the known problems with this particular model was the extreme tail heaviness of it. Of particular note is the addition of the balsa blocks, which would be used to anchor the Robart hinge points. Once I was satisfied with the interior construction, it was now time to put the sheathing onto the stabilizer. As you can see in the photo, it is oriented fore and aft, and of course it has to be trimmed to fit the fin. With the stabilizer now roughly finished, it was time to move on to the elevators. And as you can see in these pictures, I once again used lightning holes to try to eliminate as much weight aft of the center of gravity as possible. At this point, I elected to reinforce the connection point between the two elevator halves, as I was going to be using a control horn there, not the two external horns as basically set out in the plan. Of course, this negated most of my weight-saving plans with the lightning holes, but I felt that the gain was well worth the effort. Here you can see the stabilizer and the elevator basically matched up and rough sanded to shape. The next shot is the electric actuator for the main gear retract system. Supposed to be good for a 25-pound model, purchased offshore. We'll let you see at the end of the video how that worked out. Due to the span and size of the wing, one of the modifications I wanted to incorporate was the ability to remove the wingtips for ease of transportation. With this in mind, I elected to separate the wingtip from the main wing at the juncture of the elevator and the flaps. These pictures show how I accomplished this by using carbon fiber rods and tubes to give the wing the rigidity that was required. The two-tube system requires that they be absolutely parallel and on all axes to allow for ease of removal of the wingtips. With the washout incorporated into the wing, it made for some interesting calculations for the holes. Another wing modification that I made was to have the aileron and the flap servo installed directly in the wing. The plans called for these servos to be mounted in the center section and activated by push rods and bell cranks. This last picture clearly shows the single bolt that will be holding the two wing sections together. One of the well-documented issues with this particular model was its tendency to nose over while taxiing or on landing. In an attempt to alleviate this tendency, I elected to offset the main spar forward. This would allow the landing gear to move forward 5/8 of an inch and still be able to clear the main spar. These pictures show how that was accomplished. Another known issue with this wing was the very small wing joiners at the wing dihedral. Wing failures had occurred, and I elected to put in much more substantial plywood wing joiners, as you can see in the pictures. So now I have both wing tips that are separating smoothly and easy to put on and easy to take off. I might add that I was quite pleased with how this modification to the wing came out, and it was a lot of work, but I think it was worth it. I know it is worth it. In this picture, you can clearly see the push rod and bell crank to actuate the elevator. Of course, I've replaced those with the servos that will be mounted in the wing, as mentioned earlier. So now it's time to mate the two wing panels to the center section of the wing. The following pictures will highlight how this was accomplished. In this picture, you can clearly see the main spar offset and the wing joiner. To further strengthen this dihedral joint, I decided to install mid-span reinforcements that you can see where the clamps are. Fortunately, my building table is long enough that I can put the whole wing on there to get the dihedral measurements very accurate. Another view of the mid-chord, mid-span dihedral reinforcement. You will note that the aileron servo mount is right at the brake for the wingtips. The wing is completely together now, and you can clearly see the wheel wells, the rather large openings behind the main spar. Also note the balsa blocks at the trailing edge, which will be for the hinge points, the Robart hinge points. Starting to look like a wing now. Satisfied with the wing progress, it was now time to turn my eye to the fuselage. The fuselage is built in two sections, top and bottom, and you can see here I'm starting on the top section. Again, in an effort to reduce the weight after the center of gravity, I decided to lighten up the formers, and as you can see, holes were drilled in all the formers to hopefully remove a little bit of weight. As they say, every little bit helps. The platform for the stabilizer is shown here, as well as the reinforcing. That will be the tail wheel area. Some close-up views of the front formers, as well as the rear formers, again with the lightning holes, to give you an idea. Once satisfied with the construction, it was time to start the balsa planking in. And this went along fairly quickly, and thank goodness for CA glue. Certainly makes the job go a lot faster, and I was very pleased with the results. The reason for leaving the front top section still open is I hope to plan on installing most of my radio gear in there with the radio switches and a hatchway there. Interior view of the cockpit area and the cockpit floor. Close-up of the front hatch area, again where I hope to install radio switches, etc. Another modification I hope to incorporate into this build was the use of a pull-pull system for rudder actuation. With this in mind, I set up the center rudder servo and ran lines back through the fuselage to see what kind of clearance issues I would have, where the exit points would be through the fuselage, and basically the distance I would require for the rudder horns. Also at this time, I decided to set up my push-pull system for the elevator control, which would be through a heavy-duty nyrod system. When I was satisfied with the rudder linkage, it was now time to set up the linkage to activate the tail wheel. The tail wheel would be directly connected to the servo output arm, so I had to incorporate springs to diminish any of the shock load that may encounter. Installation of bottom fuselage formers to ensure clearance. A good view of the rudder servo with the rudder servo arms attached to the rudder servo leads and also the tail wheel control wires. Here is a view of the actual tail wheel attachment points with the leads attached. Good view of the Spitfire top half section as it's safely contained in the custom built stand. Time to put the fuselage away and get back to the wing, specifically the wing landing gear installation. These last 4 pictures show the initial laying out, setting up, trying to determine exactly how these landing gear were going to function, the angles, etc., that goes along to building these. Again, no plans to go by. This is basically winging it all the way. Well, that's about it for now. I hope you have enjoyed this first in a series of build construction articles on the Spitfire. I suspect there'll probably be at least 3, maybe 4 more. And hopefully at the end you'll be able to see the airplane fly. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. And if you'd like to be notified of future videos, just hit the subscribe button. Thank you. Have a great day. More to come.